So required for this lab is a couple different things that you'll need. A computer. You've all made it to this session, so I'm guessing that you've got a computer. Administrative permissions on where you're going to be working. Windows we're not going to really worry about. OS X and Linux is going to be just perfect for today. It would be helpful for you to have some command line experience. And the reason why is that we'll do some basic shell and connect to some systems via our either Linux or Mac OS shell. And then it's kind of helpful for you to understand these things. Some basic understandings of distributed systems and cloud computing. And when I talk about cloud computing, I could be talking about anything from AWS, Azure, Google Compute, some of the other smaller guys like DigitalOcean. There's plenty of different types of understanding of distributed systems and cloud computing that a lot of people have been introduced to. Everything from your Google Mail to how you get pictures to your phone. We all know that, and that's a big reason why we're here talking about the subject today. If you know something about virtual machines, it could be helpful for you if you need to run one today. And understanding just basic HTTP put get, because that's all we're really going to be talking about as far as doing anything to an API. That's really it. So let's move ahead. So let's first meet MongoDB, and I'll give you a brief introduction of what it is. It's an open source, distributed, and high performance and scalable document database. It's got all these incredible drivers and frameworks available to be used. And it became extremely popular with developers because everything from Java, PHP, C++, to really rich stacks like Angular, the mean stack, Django, and other technologies that you were able to use to build really rich web applications. So along with building a lot of applications and doing database work comes with a certain amount of operations burden. And you as a system administrator, a DevOps person, developer, or whoever you are in your organization, you may be placed with all these responsibilities. So what we did is kind of thought of a way to give you a fully capable deployment of MongoDB in the cloud. And it's highly available by default. You're going to get 3 nodes, whether you're paying for it or you're using our free version. It's self-healing, it's redundant, so that if anything goes down, you'll always have another secondary that will go ahead and become your primary. And that's where we're going to start talking a little bit about what MongoDB can do for you. I'll talk a little bit about these features. You've got continuous backup and point-in-time restore. These are if you're really interested in doing some enterprise, not enterprise, but some basic backups of your databases. If you know anything about MongoDB, MongoDB databases essentially are JSON documents, and moving them back and forth can be difficult. So what we do is we store everything in a type called BSON, and BSON is just serialized JSON. We'll take a look at more about the JSON and how it's stored in MongoDB as we go along. But backups tend to be very, very important for organizations, being able to store the documents, and that's what we call portions of our database. So instead of working with fields and tables and columns, we're working with collections, and a collection is inside of a database. So we'll take a look at that as we keep going. So here's what I'd like you all to do. Go to mongodb.com/download in a browser. You're going to find your particular operating system, and you're going to select Community Server. And please forgive me if I jumped right in, but I did kind of have to have a little bit of a brief introduction so we can put the time in to do all the work, and I can answer questions if needed. So you'll install MongoDB 3.4 and you'll register for Atlas. So we're going to do these 2 things. So I'll go ahead and show you how you would install MongoDB if you're working, say, with a Linux server. So I'm going to just do Vagrant SSH because I'm just using a local SSH, I should say a local Vagrant Ubuntu server. So there's nothing really here yet, and it's fairly easy to get started with downloading it. So we'll just go ahead, go to our browser. So obviously I'm on a Mac here, but we're going to be using Linux. So I'll just select Linux, and I have Ubuntu. Now you can feel free to use whatever you want, but you can see right here, these are all the different versions. Watch out for the ARM64. We're not using an ARM server if we're using anything like standard AWS or any of those other types of major cloud providers. Nobody's using ARM there. All right, so let's see. What we're going to do is we're going to follow this and follow the instructions for installing with apt. That's just the way I prefer it. And installing with apt is really easy. So first thing we'll do is we'll scroll down to this install on Ubuntu section. As you can see, we'll just go back and I'll show you if you missed how I got to this page. Instructions for installing with apt. Now, in a minute, I'm going to start taking some questions. RHEL 7 should be fine. Sorry, I want to make sure that everybody is, if you have questions, that I take a look. RHEL 7 should be fine. If you're using RHEL, if you see in here, let's see what it says. Linux. There you go. RHEL is fine. Here are all your versions that will be available for you if you're using Linux. They're all really simple to get started with apt. And like I said, we'll do that next. So we'll go ahead and we'll get the public key. And it's as simple as sudo back. We'll just copy and paste this. And I did it as sudo because we debroot. So next, after you do that, you actually have to tell the operating system, and I'm sure a lot of you already know this, that we need the actual repository list. So what we're going to do is echo it from this. We're using 1604. If you're not sure. Nope, I'm not using 1604. I'm using 1404. It's a good thing I checked. So I'll go here and I'll copy. And what I'll do is we'll need sudo here again because we need to put this file, as you can see, in etc apt sources list.d. And this particular file right here is in a directory that's owned by root. So we're going to need to go ahead and run this particular command like that. So now we should be able to do sudo apt-get update. Oops. And now that's going to update all our repository packages. And if you're not using this or you're using a different version, like your CentOS or something like that, yep, you'll be able to follow a similar set of directions. They're not exactly the same. You'll be using a different type of program other than apt, but it's really simplistic and just kind of like this. So now we've reloaded the package database, and now we'll just install MongoDB. Now, let me explain to you. We're not going to run the MongoDB server in this process. My goal here is just to get you the client. And the reason why I want to get you the client is so you can actually log into your cluster. Just so I can know, could someone go on mic and let me know if you can see my screen well and you can see this terminal?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, so we're going to do this. We'll get through the portion where we're installing MongoDB. So while that's happening, what I'd like you to do is in a browser. Now, I'm going to go right here to cloud.mongodb.com because I've already signed up. But what I want you to do, now if you've already signed up, you're already a MongoDB cloud user, well, you've made my job much easier today. What I'd like you to do is just go here and wait for me if you've already signed up. If you have a cloud manager group, and this is getting a little deep for someone who maybe already have an account, they created one a while ago, you can go here to My Groups. You can click Add Group and go ahead and create a MongoDB Atlas group. Now, if you've never used MongoDB's cloud services or any form of MongoDB Atlas service, what I'd like you to do is just go to mongodb.com/cloud. And then just go ahead and click Get Started for free. So what I'd like you to do is fill out the account profile and then agree to the terms of service. When you've finished, you should be a screen that, excuse me, you should be at a screen that that logs you out, apparently. One sec. Let's try it once more. You should be at this screen. So I'm going to give everybody about 2 minutes to do that. And I'll take some questions in the chat or via talk while you're doing that. So why don't you go ahead, sign up, and let me know if anybody's having a problem.
All right, Jay, I had a MongoDB account But where is the Atlas at once I get logged in? Because I see build a new cluster. Because I still had the Atlas one that
It
I had.
looks like this.
No, I had that. Yeah, it looks like that.
Great. Just wait for me. Let's let anybody else who wants to sign up sign up.
Okay.
So it's probably a minute or two.
We got a
No,
question saying, is it the MongoDB University account? Is that the
so
same?
Tracy, it's absolutely a separate account. So what I recommend you do is just go ahead and sign up for a new one on that page, like I showed you before, right here. But when you're done, it'll bring you to this, and we'll go over building a cluster. Like I said, let me give you just another minute. Cool. Glad to hear.
I think everybody should be okay. If you're not okay,
All right,
please let us.
great. So we'll keep going. So let me go back to my deck for a second. I'll do a little bit more talking here, and then we'll go back to our demo. So what I'd like you to do is to verify your shell is installed on your client machine. So just all the stuff that you need to type will be in red. This is kind of an older version, but for our new version, you can see right here. So now we have Mongo Shell version 346, OpenSSL. These are all things we need. Cool. So we're right there at the very, very beginning of what we need to do to start working with MongoDB. So for the rest of this, I'm kind of just going to be working on my local laptop. I just have a lot of environments set up, but you're fine with Ubuntu. I just wanted to show you how it works and how you can get started if you're using Linux. I rarely use Linux for this type of work lately, so I'm just kind of going to just do it all in Mac. So the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and start launching a free M0. And to launch the free M0, what I want you to do is just go ahead and click that build a new cluster button, and then you're going to get a screen like this. So just fill out the name of your cluster. I'm just going to call it my first cluster, and then go and pick the M0. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how that's done here. So I'll build a new cluster. So here's a little thing that people need to know when they're using M0, which is the class of server we're going to use today. The M0 is free. The M0 will only be available to you on AWS. This is just the way it works, but the way M0 will never cost you a dime. So just go ahead and click confirm and deploy. I'm not a robot. I don't know about y'all, but I am definitely not. So I'll verify. Now this is going to take about 3 to 5 minutes. Thank you, Tanika. So that process will take about 3 to 5 minutes. You can see that it will start deploying each individual server. So let me explain to you what's going on in the background. Now, in the case of MongoDB Atlas's free tier, what you're getting is a virtualized version of 3 instances, whether it would be EC2 or if you're using Azure or using cloud. What we're giving in the free version is a replication of what you would see. So you're going to get 3 nodes. You're going to get 512 megabytes on each individual node that'll be replicated between all 3, any data you've added. All that data will be stored in a format known as JSON. JSON is a standard. It's widely used across many different platforms, and it's well known because it's easy to transmit via the serialized version I mentioned before in BSON. Now what we'll do is just wait for this to finish. Like I said, it takes a few minutes. And then after that, let me get back my deck. Now, during the process, you might have had to set a password. If you did set a password, make sure that you remember it. We're going to need it again. I have absolutely no clue what password I set. So what I will do is I'm going to go to security. And here's my user, admin. And I'm going to edit the password. And as you can see, we've got a couple different roles here. So the Atlas admin, what does that user do? It's got privileges to do basically everything, from the Atlas interface to the database level. It can do anything. Now, at this point, Read and write to any database means that you're only going to have database access, nothing else. You're not going to be able to log into anywhere other than your database. You can't use certain functions. You can just read to the database or write to the database. You have no administration rights to the database. And then, of course, there's read-only, and that's necessary if you just want a read-only user. Maybe your application doesn't write any data, and all you want to do is read from a large database. Then you can just create your own least privileged access read-only user. So today we're just going to have an Atlas admin. Like I said, I haven't set a password for it yet, so I'm just going to set it to breakfast. It's a terrible password. I don't recommend it to anyone. So it's going to deploy my changes. And what that means is that any changes that I've told to Atlas, whether it's I'm modifying the size of my instance size, and that's during paid. And I can show you a little bit more about the paid stuff after we kind of go through the free demo, because I don't want you all to feel like you have anything that you're going to need to pay to see. I'll show you everything. So right here, we'll go ahead and we'll deploy our current changes. And once that's done, we'll move on to the next portion. We're going to whitelist your IP address. Now, you see how I created this little thing here with connect, add entry. So I'm going to show you how to do this. So what I'd like you all to do is click security. And you're going to see a bunch of different options. Now, we already saw the password option. Now let's take a look at the whitelist option. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an IP address. Now, I'm going to be working from my laptop. That means that I can just add current IP address and be done with it. If you're not working from your laptop, you might need to find out what your IP address is of your virtual server. And if that's the case, I've got this really neat trick that you could do if you have curl installed. Type curl I and has IP.com. That's the IP of whatever virtual server you're working with. So what you're going to need to do is whitelist that. So put a whitelist entry there, and then just add a comment, my server. You don't have to, but it's good practice. And then what it's going to do, and in the case of, say, EC2, what it would do is we'd go to each individual EC2 instance and make sure that the security group that each instance is in has the proper firewall settings. So there's only one security group for these three. It'll make that one modification, and it opens up the firewall so that you can start connecting to it and making modifications from the database that we were talking about. So just while we're here in the security tab, I want to show you one more feature that's really cool. If you're familiar with AWS, we have a way that you can actually peer to your existing VPC on the AWS side. This is for some real advanced networking so that you can do additional security, reduce what your actual exposure to your data is. Really, really great stuff, and it's all the default that AWS provides you. It's not going to cost you anything more, and actually you'll save money by peering your VPC if you're using like real lots of data. Because I believe the inter-transfer costs for AWS, if you're going over the public internet, it's something like, I want to say, 9 cents per gig. And I think intra, which is just doing work, and see, you would be doing that if you were peering. I think it's only a penny a gig. So 8 cents costs for some people who might be building new applications, they can be really, really important. So we went over user accounts and how you can create additional users. So if you want to add more users to your database, you can go ahead and add them. All the database information is stored in this database. It's called admin. It's got nothing to do with the user that we created before. The admin database is simply a database that we store information about user accounts and where they're supposed to have privileges to. It has its own specific schema that you won't ever have to manage. It's specifically there within Atlas to hold your database information. So don't worry about it, and always know that that is going to be your authentication database. So you may get into connection strings and adding them, and we'll have one in a little bit, and you'll be able to see. But admin is our authentication database. It stores where our users are. So the next thing we're going to do is actually connect to our database. And this is a quick example of where I'd like you to go next. So there's a connect button, and if you want to follow along, let's go back and click the clusters. See the connect button? Let's click that. So we've already whitelisted where we're connecting from. URI connection string, that's got more to do when we're adding it to an application. We'll do that later on. But right now what we're going to do is connect with the Mongo shell. So this is information how to connect with the shell. Let me take a look at the question first. Oh, I guess it wasn't a question, it was someone coming in. Sorry. Anyone who may be behind, don't worry. Tamika is recording this, and you'll be able to go back and any of the work that we've already started. So just to get back into it, what we're going to do now is we're going to connect with the Mongo shell. So like I said, we're going to go, sorry to start over again, we're going to go to clusters. We're going to click connect. We're going to scroll to the bottom of this modal, and then we're going to go ahead and click copy. Now, I don't want you to hit enter right away because I want you to take a look at the connection string that we're going to get, and I want you to make some changes to it. Now, if you prefer to do your changes, say, in a text editor, so let's say I'm old, so I'll do it in Vim. But we need to make some changes here because in order to actually connect to we actually need to put in valid info. So as you can see here, this is the connection string that we got, or I should say the shell connection we got directly from here. But there's some stuff we need to change. First of all, here's that authentication database I mentioned to you, just putting it in your eyes. But there's something we need to change here, which is the password. This password, it's not going to connect us because it's just a placeholder. So the best thing to do is just go in, delete that, and then for me, my password's breakfast. Then all I have to do is take this, copy it, sorry, copy it right there. And let's figure out, oh, because I didn't have the password there. And that's it. I'm going to do it again so you can see it clear. So that's the full shell connection string. So this is the shell client. This is essentially, think about it this way. If SSH is the client to log into a Linux server, Mongo is the client to log into a MongoDB server. So that's what we're going to use right now. And I'm going to explain this entire connection string to you right now. And I will promise you that after I explain this entire connection, you're going to get a lot more understanding about what exactly the hell is going on here. All right? So first, Mongo. That refers to the client binary. Next thing we're going to talk about is the URI. This is opening up a connection. This is us saying MongoDB : // It's the way we would present, say, an HTTP, but we're not making an HTTP connection. We're making a MongoDB connection. So we're stating it to our Mongo shell that we're making a MongoDB connection. So you'll see right here, there are 3 different hosts right here. And I can explain each one to you in this way simply. By going to clusters, and you don't have to do this, but you can watch along. Primary, secondary, secondary. Now, in the context of MongoDB, primary will always be where all writes occur, no matter what happens. You can never have a write go to a secondary. It's not configured to be writable. It's only, and it's not there to even give you something like backup or anything. It's there in case another server fails. If this primary is to fail, there is an existing algorithm between all 3 that will watch this guy and say, uh-oh, he died. And these 2 will determine which are the most up-to-date and pick the most up-to-date and become the primary. That's what really makes MongoDB powerful, because you no longer need to really be concerned about one of these not being available. If you've got a 3-node set and you've got it properly configured, you can essentially have a period of extended uptime and rarely ever need to concern yourself with a database going down. So
quick question, is that based on priority or weight? With those picking the nodes, can you pick your priority on which node to fail over to?
So here's what happens, is that there is a voting system. Every single one of these gets an electable vote. And when one of these fails, these two servers determine based on the op log. And the op log is, if anybody has previous experience with other relational databases, there are basically logs that will record every single write that occurs. And you can store that and use it to replicate to other servers. So what it does is it's going to look over here what the most up-to-date timestamp on the op log is. And in less than, I believe it's less than 2 seconds, it says, you have the most up-to-date op log. You are now the new primary. So you personally, you don't need to step down. There is a method to changing primaries into secondaries and secondaries to primaries. You can set which one you want to be the primary, but it's not necessarily going to be required. And the reason why is that MongoDB Atlas never will require you to say, make this one a primary and make this one a secondary. It's just handled for you automatically. Let me go through the rest of this. So now we go here, and the next part of our URI has your test. And that's actually just the name of a database that we would use to test login with. You can always change this if you want to log directly to a specific database. That's kind of helpful if you have a username and password that's a read-only or limited to an individual database. So let's say that my user was only allowed to connect to a particular database called test123. Then when I logged in, I would change this to test123. All right? Authentication database, that's the database our username and password information is stored in. SSL, that means that by default, all of our connections go over TLS and are secure. Username, we all know what that is. And password, well, that's breakfast for me. So all I do is hit enter, and now I'm in. The shell version is 343, and you can see that I've made a connection, and I'm connected to the primary. If you state in a shell connection like this, all 3 nodes, the client will always know to go to the primary first, because that's where you're going to actually be able to write to. So let us go back here and go to the next part. So we went over and we talked about the command shell and we logged in. And now we're going to create our first document. So what I'd like you to do is create a database. So unlike a lot of other databases, you basically can create namespaces within your cluster for a number of databases. Databases are just namespaces. So in this particular situation, our cluster of our server is named my first cluster. And we're connected to the primary. And we're going to say use MongoDB lab. So I'll show you how I would do it. Use MongoDB lab. And just like that, it automatically gives you a database to start working with. You don't have to create a schema. You don't have to use any other information. You don't have to do any initialization. As soon as you write something to this database, it'll be permanently stored in the database until you delete the record, and then it'll get replicated across the 3 nodes. So what's going to be the first document that we create? Right here, db-first-doc.insert, and then that is a parentheses, and that's a curly brace. And you'll notice that everything is in parentheses and curly braces for things like that. And that's because this is actually a JSON document right here. An open bracket, or I should say an open curly brace and a closed curly brace shows you this is the actual contents of a complete, a complete document. So right here you'll see first doc, right? And you might be asking, well, if we created a database called MongoDB Lab, what's this first doc thing here? Well, databases are the larger namespace. And within that namespace, we have collections. So right here, we're going to create a collection within our database. So go ahead If you need a second, I'll wait, but you'll type db.firstdoc, insert, now I'm going to go ahead and, since I've already created MongoDB, I'm just going to go MongoDB 2, whatever. Actually, I'll just call it MongoDB 3.4. And then you always need to close for the parentheses. So, oh, I forgot. You know, typing the words right helps too, yeah. Cool. So what we can see here is we went ahead and inserted a file, or I should say a document, into our database. I'm going to go ahead and check and see how everybody's doing. Yes, user error indeed. Everybody all right? Cool. I'm going to keep moving along. So now what we want to do is actually look at the document. So you can use some pretty simple commands, and it'll show you the databases that are locally on your machine. So go ahead and type show to databases. Then after you've done that, go ahead and click show collections. So you'll see the namespace you created for your database called MongoDB Lab. And then you'll see the collection that you kept for your new document called firstdoc. And then you can go ahead and actually list it. You can use the find command. So the basis of most MongoDB commands kind of works like this. DB, as in I'm running a DB command. Firstdoc, as in this is the actual collection that the document is contained in. And then we are going to find. And like I said, we need to have an open and close bracket or parentheses there. And then you can see, now I added 2 documents, and you can see some information. So each individual document gets a unique identifier in its object ID. And you can see there's our key and our value. Now, MongoDB is more than just a key value store. But the fact is I wanted to give you a very simple way to start understanding how you can start storing data. So let's say you were using an application that's going to store data into MongoDB. You could use something such as Nodejs to format a number of incoming documents into JSON format. So let's say your user signs up for something, and in the process of signing up for something, you need to be able to store the information that they've put into a form. Now, there are relational databases where you can store that information, but having that all come back together and joining it is a little bit more difficult. We can actually have a number of different items in our single document and then basically just call portions of those documents directly. And we don't have to use a layer to kind of normalize the data. We can just start printing it directly into our application. And that's kind of what makes MongoDB really, really powerful for users and developers. So what I want to do right now is teach you how to do an import of JSON data. And this is how you could do something and build an application with any sort of kind of data set that you have. So go ahead and go to media.mongodb.org/zips.json. Now, I personally, I dig using, I like using wget, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'll just go ahead and wget the file. And what you can do to look into it, just to get an idea of what we're doing here, I'm going to use less. If you want to open it up with your favorite different type of thing there, go for it. But as you can see here, we've got a basic amount of data where it's basically just zip codes for states, cities, and locations, and individual longitude and latitude. Now, one of the cool things that we can do with this data is build applications around it. We can create geo-identifiable indexes, or I should say geospatial indexes. So you can actually create map points. You can do a lot of really powerful things. I'm giving you the basis of how to start doing this. So here's what I want you to do. Go ahead and download it so you get it each day. Looks good to me. All right. So once you download the zip file, we'll review it like we said, so you can take a look at what's inside. And then we're going to import it. So you're going to see some portions that you're going to need to fill out. You're going to need to put your primary's host name in this portion. So what I want you all to do, and I'm going to move this over here to make it a little bit more visible on this side. Actually, let me just put this up for you. The only thing that I want you to do differently, right here, I want you to type all this pretty much word for word. And I'm just going to leave this up. The only thing that I want you to do differently is the following. I want you to go back into MongoDB Atlas, and I want you to look up the host name that you're working with. And this is one of those situations where using an editor could be just as easy as doing it directly. I would actually recommend type this out in an editor first, just so if you make a mistake, you go in and just edit it again. But you'll use the Mongo import utility. Mongo import is just the utility to import data into MongoDB. And then we're going to say what our host is. So in the case of me, if I want to see what my primary host is, I'll go into my first cluster, primary. Now here's a little secret I'm going to show you. Just go ahead, copy that. And that's your primary. That little black B, everything next to it, that's your primary. That's what you need. Which URL did you need? The zips, Andrew?
Yeah, yes, please.
Cool. Yeah, let me do it for you right now. And you know what I'm going to do is just to make this easier for people, because I know I'm moving pretty quickly, is let me take this for you. Not this. This is AWS. You don't need that. I'm going to take this right here, and I'll put it in the chat. So it's a little bit easier. You can copy and paste it. So I want you to modify this line with your primary. Then I want you to state the database name, which is going to be zips. Then what we're going to do -- type. And the reason why we're going to say type is we're going to tell that we're feeding it JSON, basic JSON. We just want to know, because you can actually use CSVs, you can use XLS files, you can use all different types of, as long as there's some sort of common delimiter, you can import the data. I believe there's some support for some XML markup, but who wants to do that? So next is -- file. Now, I just said go into my local directory, that's what this tilde/ is, and zips, but if you know the directory location of your zips file, just go ahead and put it there. -- authentication database. This camel case portion is important. You need to have that upper D. Like we said, it's admin. That's where all of our username and passwords are stored. SSL, making sure our connection is safe. Our username is whatever username you created. And our password, yours isn't breakfast, that's mine. So I'll go ahead and I'll run the command myself. So I'll go here, just delete this portion of the connection. I don't.
Uh-oh. Bad connection. I still see your screen. You're moving slow. You're talking, but I don't hear you. Does everyone hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So J is most definitely on you. I should take this screenshot with your face frozen and tweet it. uh, okay, you came back in twice there. I can't hear you. I see you. Hold on, let me. No, you're still a presenter.
I'm back.
There you are.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
No,
you can go ahead and start sharing again with me.
You're fine. Can you, are you, hold on. Make a presenter. There you go.
I am
Oh,
so sorry about that, everybody.
oh, you're fine. You're a presenter now.
Cool. We all back to where I'm at? Everybody can see everything?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'll go ahead and just paste that right in there. So Mongo import, hit enter, and oh, it's because I'm missing. What did I do here?
Yeah, that's what it said for me. Mongo import. It was something wrong with that. I was looking that over, and then that's when you froze.
There we go. Just delete and retype password. I think there might have been a bad dash. It might have been just from copying and pasting it from the deck. But you can see, there we go. Using the file name zips as a collection, it connected to my local, it connected to my actual cluster, and then it imported 29,353 documents. I'll give everybody a minute to kind of catch up. Like I said, I apologize that I dropped off. See if anybody's got any questions. How you doing, Tracy? Everything all right?
Yep. So it had a hyphen and a dash. That's why it wasn't working for passwords.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what happened. I have to fix that in my deck. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, we'll keep going. So once you've imported the documents, now we can go back over here. Now you can actually start looking at them. So what I want you to do is just do a show databases, and now you'll see zips as a part of your databases. And then after that, I want you to just use it. And you should see something that says switch to DB zips. Now, there's a portion of that there's a deck. How did the hell that happen? All right, I'm going to go ahead and show you what to do next. I am so sorry. Like I said, jury duty really screwed up my week. So what I want you to do is log back into your shell. So I went ahead, and I think it was back here. So just log back into your shell. Show collections. Show databases. Sorry. Show collections. Actually, first, after that, we use zips. Like I said, show collections. It's zips. Now we can do this. db dash, or actually db dot, find. Nope, not yet. Why? Because we need to say zips. So db is because we're running a db command. Zips because we're working in the zips collection. Then find, and open and close bracket. And now we have our data. Our data has been imported into MongoDB Atlas. So go ahead and type it. You can see more. And if you want to do specific queries on data, you could do something like find city. And say you didn't know Springfield was in there. I'm missing. You have to do that in curly braces because we're working with a document. There you go. You see here, what I said was I wanted to look up any city named Springfield. it actually showed me all the different cities named Springfield. And we can use, I believe, .pretty. Yep, and that'll pretty print it so that you can see actually some multiple items in a single document, including some location information that, like I said, we can create advanced indexes on. So we've gone ahead and we've done some basic stuff, and I want to show you when we actually uploaded stuff to Atlas, we were actually able to see there were changes to our database, and you can go to clusters, click My First Cluster. You can start looking at the metrics, and you can actually see the inserts of your data right there. You can see the network and the actual throughput. Now, if we were doing thousands and thousands of connections and throughput, you'd be able to see it. And I'm going to actually show you when we start doing my personal demo. I'll show you some of the information related to the paid version and how you can see even more of the advanced stuff, like the real-time metrics. So what I want to show you right now is how to create a really, really basic application using MongoDB Nodejs. You don't need to follow along, but if you want to, what you can do is this. You can go to these two URLs, and I'll put them in the chat room as well. These are a blog post and a Git repo. I'm going to just work with the Git repo because I've already read the blog post, but I really recommend if you're interested in making a really simple application to learn a little bit of Node.js, a little MongoDB, and a little Angular. This is it. It's as simple as it gets. So what we can do is clone the repository. All right, just want to check. Oh, I'm in the directory right now. So I would clone the directory information here, and then what I would do is then npm install right in here. Now, you should have npm installed if you're going to be working with this, and Node. If you don't, you can run this basically simple. Just go ahead and go to your Ubuntu machine or any type of Linux version and just do apt-get install Node.js and Node npm. You'll get all the things you need. I'm going to just give you a quick version of this now. So I will npm install application. And it's gone ahead and it's installed all the required modules in the Node modules section. If you're not too familiar with Node.js, I really do apologize, but I really recommend checking out this specific to-do because it's very, very simple. So what we've got inside here are some basic config files, application code, and a public, I should say a package.json file. And that's going to tell us all the requirements. So we're going to be using the Mongoose driver, Express, Morgan, and method override, and a body parser. So really basic things. Not a lot required to actually run this. So the first thing I'm going to do after I've done the npm install is go ahead and go to the config file and go to database.js. Now you can see here, this is an empty spot that's asking for a database URI. So what I'm going to do is go here, and I'm going to actually use my paid version. And it's just because I want to show you some of the more advanced stuff that we have in Atlas. So it's all pretty much the same, though. I'm going to go right here. Now, I'm going to use the URI connection string. And that's how I'm going to actually connect to my database. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead, I'll copy this. I'll paste this in here. Now, what I need to do is I don't actually need to set a database. The reason why I don't need to set a database up on the shell is that as soon as you try to write information to a database in a document from an authenticated user, it will create the namespace. Let me take a look at the messages we got going on right now. Thank you very much, Tamika. I appreciate it.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, so you can see I went ahead and I pasted in the URI. The URI is a little different than the Mongo shell. The Mongo shell just used a binary and then gave a whole bunch of information on how to connect. The URI gives just the information that we need to actually connect our application to MongoDB. So you can see it looks fairly similar. We've got a username and password. We've got all the hosts that we mentioned before. SSL, our replica set, which is named records because I named it records because it's got some data about all of my record collection in it. But the fact is that since I've already created the cluster, I can just reuse it for other purposes. Remember, it's all about the namespace. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new namespace. Like I said before, what was it? It was just this placeholder. We'll remove the placeholder and go ahead and add a dummy name for to-do. And I'll just call it to-do123. No problem. Okay? So now I need to change a couple other things. I need to go over here to the admin username and password because, to be honest with you, I'm not going to type in my password for everybody here. That's embarrassing. I'm not going to embarrass myself. What I am going to do is I'm going to show you I'm going to create a user. So I'll go to users. You don't have to do this, but I am. I'm going to add, no, excuse me, my bad. I'm going to go back to clusters, go to security. I'm going to add a new user. And then I'm going to just create an Atlas admin because it's what I need right now. And I'm going to call this user JUser. You can call yours whatever you want, but I'm going to call mine JUser. And I'll just go ahead and, if I don't forget to, pop it in right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and get ready to replace the password. So I'll go over here. And I'll create a password, and our password will be breakfast 2. Okay, great. And I'll add my user. So then while Atlas is adding my user, I'll go ahead and I'll finish up what I'm doing here. So I've got my entire URI configured. Some of you might have some different stuff in your database.js file. If it's pre-filled with some stuff, just go ahead and delete it and make yours look like this. Local URL and a colon. And then the end bracket and that semicolon. So obviously I'm using my login and my database, but I want you to use yours. So just go ahead, put in your username, your password, your information, name your database, and then save your file. After you saved your file, you should be able to launch your application just like this. And I'm running it on my local machine, so I'm just going to do localhost 8080. And now I've got my application, which is a basic to-do app. So if I do this and I add, you can see I posted to my URI that hit my API that eventually created what's going to be documents. Now, you're going to ask me, Jay, what does MongoDB have to really do with anything that I'm seeing here? This is just a bunch of you typing a bunch of letters. Well, that's why I wanted to do this with the paid version. Let me explain. So we'll go here to clusters. Now, you're not going to be able to do this unless you pay for Atlas. And the reason why I'm doing this for you is to show you that it's capable with the paid version. So we'll go ahead and we'll click Data. So this is Data Explorer, and the Data Explorer is just a basic read-only version, being able to look at your database's contents. And now you're going to get to see all the stuff that makes up your individual atlas. Now you can do this from the shell. You can do these things from the shell, and if you need more information about learning how to use the shell, try out one of these quick reference sheets. This is going to give you all basically the information you need. I really will say that the MongoDB documentation for people who are very, very deep Linux users or who are just trying to get started with some of this stuff, it's helpful to everybody. You can even use the Mongo shell if you read some of this without a database, just to actually test learning the syntax of using it. It's very much like JavaScript. It's simple to get started to use. You can see it includes some basic shell JavaScript operations that you can run to get information. But let me just show you the Data Explorer and why people want to pay for it, because it makes it so much easier. So remember I said todo123 was the name of my database. Click that, and right now, here we go, to-dos. Got my database right there. That's my collection. And inside the collection, you can see these. Now, let's go ahead, go back to my app, which I believe is this guy right here. Yep. Now, if I type in right here, click Add, I should be able to go back to the Data Explorer, go back to to-dos, go to to-dos. It'll load the documents. Uh-oh. It's because my data changed. Just refreshing it. Uh-oh. Good thing this is a live demo, right? Go to to-dos 1, 2, 3. There. Now we see it's 4 documents, to-dos. And there's our Women in Linux document. So what I can do is if I ever wanted to go back on and just look at some of the data, I can do that. I can add indexes to my data. You can do all these also from MongoDB Compass. So here's another tool that you can all download right now if you want to start looking at your documents. It's very simple. It's all just a GUI to be able to log into your database and start looking at it. And it looks a lot like this, but it actually gives you full CRUD, create, write, update, and delete. So you'll have access to kind of do all that stuff. So that's pretty much it for today as far as like my live demo and the introduction to Atlas. I really appreciate everybody taking some time to listen, and I'm happy to answer some questions now if anybody's got them.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Anybody need a link? I know, Andrew, you were asking about the MongoDB import or the Mongo import, but like I said, we didn't install anything for Mongo import. It was more or less like we went and
The Mongo import came with the actual Mongo package. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
oh no, you're fine. It's your show here.
Yeah. So just to wrap up, what you need to actually do this type of stuff. It's easy to get started with MongoDB on your local computer or say on a remote server. Just go ahead and install the MongoDB binary. You can use apt. You can use a number of different packages. There's also the source, so you can actually compile it locally if you want to. You can have all these different ways to actually work with MongoDB, start playing around and understanding it. That's pretty much it. Is there any other questions?
Did anybody have any question about the links? Jay, if you could post the links or send an email or tweet it out or whatever, all the links that you use, because I know you use, I posted what we used earlier, the MongoDB download. Let me see. Let me
Are,
scroll up.
are you talking about the Atlas, the data Explorer?
The data, let's see, we did the MongoDB download. We had um, the zip file. And I mean, anybody that could go back over it can probably see it, but I usually try to, if I post it, I usually try to post under the link, hey, X, Y, and Z.
Yep. Tracy, to answer your question, Atlas is free for that 512 megabyte user
I
account.
think it went to cloud and signed up through that with that 30-day trial. That's what happened.
Oh, you know what you went to? That's cloud. You need to go to Atlas. Let me show you how to switch, okay?
Okay.
You go to My Groups, add a group. See how there's 2?
Gotcha. Okay.
but then just select Atlas instead of Cloud Manager. That should help get you where you need to be. Now, speaking of where I need to be, my lovely wife would like me to be eating dinner. So I would like to thank you all for your time tonight.